Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program.
Reading with Your Kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Today we're going to New Zealand to speak to the author of Fairytale Fraud. Her name is Katie Pye. Katie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful day in New Zealand, but we've got winter. What have you got there?
Technically it's summer, although we've had 4 days of torrential rain and thunderstorms here in beautiful Reedville. And we didn't plan on it, but we now have an above ground infinity pool in our backyard, which was quite a surprise to wake up to the other day. We didn't I guess it's like an extra.
Excellent.
So tell us all about Fairytale Fraud.
Oh, look, I'm a huge fan of fairy tales. Growing up, I enjoyed every story I could get my hands off. And then I found that people had written fractured fairy tales, and they were a ton of fun. And one day I just had this fantastic idea for the Three Little Pigs and teaching children the idea of wise trust. And I wrote that, loved it, and just couldn't stop.
That's so cool. I love taking something that's very familiar and giving it a new spin.
That's exactly what I'm doing. If there isn't a twist, then I don't write it. I want people to be surprised and shocked. My children are a really good test of whether I've written a good story or not. They hold no punches. So unless they're entertained, I'm not willing to continue with my drafts and polishing it up for others to read.
Now, some people out there might think, oh, why would you mess with the classics? I mean, the fairy tales are there. They've been there for generations. But the reality is the fairy tales, people have been adapting and updating and changing fairy tales forever.
Yeah, I mean, right back to the original fairy tales, there's a whole lot of adaptations. But I think the thing is that you become familiar with a fairy tale character and you want to see different sides of them. So my concept when I'm writing all my fairy tale frauds is that each character has a character flaw. And through their journey as a character, they are able to sort of learn and grow. For example, I'm about to release Jack's giant problem, and Jack has a problem of thoughtlessness. Now, lots of people think of Jack as a hero as he clambers up the beanstalk and steals all these things from the giant. We don't often think about the other side of his character. And so I'm just sort of, in my fairy tale frauds, playing out the different sides of their characters and having them learn and grow.
So talk a little bit about that other side of Jack that we don't think about that often.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, he's a bit of a scoundrel, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, he goes up into the giant's place, he steals, he comes down, he goes back up again and steals and comes down again. And he's just out there to get everything that he can, not realizing the impact that it might have on the giant. In my story, there's a few other twists where he is thoughtless, not only towards the giant, but towards others. And it sort of starts a practice of being thoughtless, generally in his life. And so he goes through a process of learning that it's important to think of others after a rather terrifying episode for him.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I do remember about Jack, I never thought of him as all that heroic because he didn't do what his mom said. You know, he went out and he sold things and was kind of silly when he got those beans.
Yeah. I mean, even in my story, there's a twist to how he gets those beans, and he doesn't even sell the cow. But I can't give too much away. That one's coming out next month, so readers can enjoy the twist then.
Well, so you started with the Three Little Pigs. Was there a reason for that? Were they your favorite fairy tale?
To be honest, my Fairytale Frauds were written with the idea of teaching my own children different values and supporting them in character development. And I didn't want to write stories that they could see through. I mean, kids have these amazing radars to identify when we're trying to shove messages onto them. So I wanted to write some stories that felt not preachy, but were a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, it made for a good thought and also might have stimulated a bit of conversation. And so at the time I had a list of things that I wanted to support my kids into, and wise trust was one of them. So I was just mulling over that and thought, hang on a minute, what if the Three Little Pigs actually trusted the big bad wolf if he strikes again?
Talk a little bit about that wise trust. What kind of things do you want your kids to know when they're deciding whether or not to trust someone?
That's a really good question. And I want them to be able to recognize that they can have their own filters and identify when they feel safe with somebody and when they don't. I want them to look at what other people think about whether a person is trustworthy and look at their past, to identify whether that person has acted trustworthy towards them before. I just want them to weigh and to stop and think. But also I want them to sort of have the confidence to learn to trust again in situations. So while this story is about the pigs trusting the wolf again and what happens as a result of that, there are situations where people have hurt us and they can regain our trust. So just to think about how we can assess whether people can be trustworthy again after breaking our trust.
Yeah, really, really important lesson. We talk here a lot on the podcast about the value of and benefits of reading with our kids, and some of them are automatic. Parents understand very well that if they read with their kids, then there's a better chance for their kids to develop the ability to read quicker, that they can develop vocabulary. So we're really familiar with that. But talk a little bit about the value of teaching values through reading and how that is more effective, as you said earlier, than just sitting down and lecturing to kids.
Oh, it's all about memory hooks. People remember things that they think is fun and interesting. And so while we could sit our children down and have a big, long conversation with them about the value of getting on with it and not procrastinating and just caring for ourselves and all that sort of thing, they may not take that message. But if you sit down with them and read a story about Rapunzel, what happens when she doesn't get on with it and decides to ditch any task that she's not interested in doing, and what happens at the end. Not only do I provide the fun story, I try and provide little memory hooks in terms of little refrains that kids will get into their mantra, that families can quote back to each other, that then mean it's quite easy to hook into the importance of that value. And once it's fun, it's easier for people to remember.
Yeah. That is you're preaching to the choir here. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I've been presenting educational magic shows, fun educational magic shows, dealing with some really serious character education issues for over 30 years. One of the things that blew me away long ago, and I'm glad it happened early because it kind of prepared me for when it popped up again. We created a disabilities awareness video that was looking to teach kids that people with disabilities are people and can be wonderful friends, and wonderful friendships can develop around them. And so we took this video and we shared it with schools. And one school system outside of Boston that had this great reputation for being progressive and open-minded, they previewed it and they came back to me saying, "We love the message that's in it. It was very clear. It was delivered very clearly. The kids could understand it. The kids heard the message. They retained it. But we're not going to show it to the rest of our kids because it was too much fun." And I'm like, what?
Is that? Oh, no. That's just wrong. Honestly, children remember things that are fun. I mean, children also want to engage in what's fun, and that's what I'm finding with my readership, is that children read one of my stories. One of my fans contacted me recently, and they said their child was straight on Amazon with them to see what else I'd released. And so if you're a parent and you want to support your children into a whole lot of healthy, resilient thinking, and you strike upon a series that the kids are interested in reading, then they've got another one that they're interested in reading. And instead of just having a conversation with them about one of the topics that was the reason that you bought the book, suddenly you find that you're having 10, 15 conversations with them about some really healthy topics just because the kids are driving it. I mean, that's what's fun.
Yeah. And think about how valuable that is in turn, again, going back to that teaching values. When the kids come to you and say, "I want to read this book," and you sit down and that sparks a conversation where you're able to instill your values. I mean, the door is wide open to your child's mind. And they open it for you. It's like, "Come on, Mom, come on, Dad, yeah. I want to hear it." Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to catalyze and I guess get some momentum with that. And so not only do I write the books, but in the back I have behind the scenes sections that have questions asked by the characters. And so the children are flicking through to these sections and the characters are asking them the questions. And I know from being a mother that if my child's soft toy asks them a question, they will answer the soft toy. But if mum asks them the same serious question, they may or may not answer. So I've got the stuff in the back, but also I'm increasingly developing material on my website like meal mats. And meal mats are conversations at meal times. Essentially, I don't know if you have those in America, little placemats that they print for children in the family restaurants to keep them occupied. Absolutely.
Well, these are them that you can print for your whole entire family. And they have questions that you ask the person on your right and little things that you can fill in and draw, sort of mazes, etc. But all of them on the theme that the child or the parent would like to discuss. So I'm really passionate about parenting, and I'm really passionate about supporting busy parents because I'm one. And I just had this amazing season as the expat where I had space to create resources that I wish was there for my parenting. And I just don't want my kids to leave home and for me to go, there's so many messages that I just didn't have a chance to discuss with them because I was so busy on day-to-day provisions, just like that for busy parents. So I'm trying to sort of support parents in structures that they already have in their lives.
What a great, two great ideas. I love that. I forget what you call it, but that placemat idea, meal mat. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, my daughter's 23 right now, but I have such great memories of. I think it started at a restaurant when my family was out on tour with me, and we were out, and the little placemat was there with a word find, and from there we came home, and we just devoured books and books of word finds to the point where we were creating our own, and those are really special moments for families, I think.
Yeah, and I guess as a mum, I find that those are the gold moments of parenting. Parenting is such hard work and it's so busy. And those moments where you just sort of look around the table and you're all connecting, those moments where you stop and have a bit of laughter with your child or get a chance to communicate a lesson in a way that you both grow from, they're just the absolute gold. And I'm really passionate about facilitating that for other parents.
And the other thing I love, and it's really unique, and I hadn't heard, we've had over close to 800 interviews here we've had over 800 interviews here in the podcast, and many authors talk about, we have a resource guide, and we have suggestions for conversations and questions you can ask your kid. This is the first time I've had an author talk about the fact that those questions are asked by the characters that the kids just fell in love with in the book. Was it? I know you were saying that if your daughter was asked a question by her plushie, she's much more likely to answer. Was that the spark for that? Did it just hit you one day? Your kid was answering questions from their plushie?
Look, I've got 3 children, and they at one point I had 3 under 4s, so they're all close together in age, and I've just experimented with so much. And so it's just been part of the experiments. Actually, on my website, I've got a page of resources, and there's a PDF there that includes a whole lot of ideas that I'd written down called a Tired Person's Inspiration List. And I had written that for myself at one point because I know what it's like to be so tired and just don't have fresh ideas. But the ideas if you sort of have a moment to sit back and think about them. So I just sort of threw that all into a list so that I could put it on my fridge for ideas. And I've now added it there in case parents want it. Some of these ideas have come to me. Some of them have been suggested to me. Like I have created what I call the Fairytale journals. Each book has a page on the website and with additional resources and activities, etc. But each fairytale character has a chance to process their thinking in what's called the Fairytale journals. And the kids get to be able to see a little bit of the behind the scenes thinking of their favourite fairytale character and how they processed, whether it was their coping with change or learning Big Billy Goat Gruff, learning gratitude or whatever, just different ways of them sort of journeying through their thinking and coming out the other side. I have found that kids find it easier to process their own thinking by having an external character to go through thinking. And this all started when my son was upset under his bed one day, crying his eyes out. I don't even know what he was upset about, but I crawled under his bed with him with a piece of paper and pen, having no idea what I would say, and just started drawing. And I drew a turnip, who knows why. We called it the crazy turnip, but I just kept on drawing, and I drew this turnip making some choices and what had happened as a result of their choices. And my son and I started the Crazy Turnip series. We wrote about 30 cartoons together, and it just stimulated conversation. So I just sort of feel like kids are more likely to talk when it's done in a really fun way without external characters.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so much easier to talk about what what the turnip might be thinking and feeling than for the kid to reveal what he or she might be thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we go, I want to talk to you about your name, because you shared a little bit with me. Katie Pye is your pen name. Can you tell us how that name came to be? Because I think it's pretty fun.
My childhood name was Katie. I've gone through lots of morphs of that because my full name is Catherine. But as a childhood, I was Katie, and because in the Māori language in New Zealand, Katie Pye means I'm fine, I am good. So in school, you learn basic te reo, which is the Māori language. And one of the things you always learn is Katie Pike koe, which means how are you? And everybody learns the response, Katie Pye. So I was called Katie Pye as a child. And when I looked for a pen name, I just thought it was brilliant. It connected me with New Zealand, and it was a little bit of a play on a name and just a bit of fun.
That is so cool. And I wasn't aware, all kids in New Zealand learn the indigenous Māori language?
It's been a few years now since I was at school, I have to confess. But yes, I believe that there are regular daily lessons in New Zealand schools. Just the basics. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really important to keep Māori alive in New Zealand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, I know folks are going to want to know where they can find out more about the Fairytale Fraud series and find out more about you. So where can folks connect with you online?
I would love to see people on my website, which is fairytalefraud.com. And I sell my books through Amazon and increasingly through Barnes & Noble and the other major stockists as well.
Excellent.
Also on Facebook and Instagram, just look up Fairytale Fraud.
Yeah, that is so great. And parents out there, again, if there's anybody who's kind of upset that Katie took these beloved fairy tales that you loved as a kid and that you think have been untouched for ages, go find the original fairy tales and read those, and be prepared to be horrified, because they are absolutely terrifying.
They absolutely are. They're just awful.
I think it was some kind of a language or English class in high school, and I was reading them, and I'm like, dude, I read Stephen King. This is worse than Stephen King. Well, we want to suggest that everybody go out there, visit headstartthinking.com, find out all about the Fairytale Fraud series, also find out about our guest, Katie Pye. Hey, Katie, thanks so much for spending this time with us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be F.C. Shaw. She is the author of Moriarty's Final Threat. This is the latest and also the last book in the Sherlock Academy series. This is really, really a wonderful treat. You're going to love meeting F.C. Shaw. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button that you will find at the bottom of the page, and you can let us know about your great book. We'll let you know about the next easy steps. Oh, also at readingwithyourkids.com, if you click on the Author Services button, you'll find out about our fantastic Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. It's been a huge help to so many authors. I want to thank the folks who helped make today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Katie Pye. Be sure to check out Fairytale Fraud. Also want to thank my incredible team, starting with my producer, Fatima Khan, my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the love and support she brings into my life. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so very much for being a part of this beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. And thank you so very much for being such an important part in your kids' life. You know, you're making the world a better place every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.